Hi, good evening. It's William with the Grand Duke Dmitri 1921 Diary Series. And yeah, we're up to the 30th April. We're jumping ahead 2 weeks. Last time we did the 13th, 14th, and 15th of April, short entries. And now we're going to one of his long endings where he both summarizes things and adds more of his own feelings and opinions about things. So, and a heads up to any of you who are watching this in England, or sorry, the United Kingdom, or possibly on the continent. There is, I believe, on Monday, the BBC will air the episode of Great Continental Railway Journeys. Should have looked that up. Okay, so they did. They're doing an episode on a journey through Switzerland, and they stopped at Schatzalp, among other places. And I gave them a little tour of Schatzalp, and then sat down with the presenter, and we talked about Dmitri, among other things. So have a look at that. I'm pretty sure it won't be airing in the U.S., but definitely in the U.K., and if you are on the continent, possibly. All right, so here's a recap for the previous 3 diary entries. Well, Dmitri and Coco arrived in Vichy and had a very uneventful stay. A little gloomy because it was low season there and the weather wasn't great. And Dmitri just didn't have much to say about it. It was sort of their usual routine of taking walks, going for drives, and that was about it. He didn't enjoy it as much as Leon, but he's also being very, very silent about their relationship and where that's at. You know, they're still going to bed early, and yeah, who knows? He's being quite oblique about that. So now that we are into one of the long entries and are also back in Paris, we have already a much larger cast beyond just Dmitri and Coco. We have our old friend Golievsky, who was involved in organizing the whole fiasco that resulted from Dmitri's. Well, he didn't organize what happened when Dmitri got back. He was appalled by that, as well as Dmitri. But Dmitri said, that even though it was ultimately his fault, that Golievsky had a lot to do with generating a lot of fanfare in Berlin that brought Dmitri under some harsh criticism from his fellow emigres. So Galeevsky and Co., as Dmitri puts it, will appear in this section of the long diary entry, and also Sasha Polovtsov, familiar person, Mamachka, Dmitri's stepmother, Princess Palais, and of course Maria, his sister, who was about to have her birthday on the 19th of April. Okay, so this is 30th April 1921, a Saturday in Paris, and Dmitri, as always, gives us his home address, 76 Miro Mesnil. That's where his flat was. All right, it's already been almost 2 weeks since I returned from Monte Carlo after my trip with Coco. Counter to my expectations, Golievsky and Co. didn't pounce on me the minute I got back with astonishing stories about what had happened in my absence. I was, however, entirely prepared for that, because it wouldn't have been the first time I left Paris only to be told when I returned that something bad had happened or some issue had been left unresolved because of my absence. This time everything was, if not great, then at least unchanged. But that's only with respect to political matters. So far as gossip is concerned, of course, within the Russian colony, apparently all the talk is exclusively about me and my trip. The fact that I went with Coco has become common knowledge, established as fact, and it is commented upon with the expected spiteful glee and malice. Oh, that was my little dog. Sasha Polovtsov was at my place 2 times and, of course, entertained me about time with stories of the most comical character. I will just interject here and say the words entertain me about time are written in English and they don't make sense in English. But anyway, back to Dmitri. It was said that I was even married to Chanel, that our trip to Monte Carlo was our honeymoon, in honor of which she had given me a Rolls, probably the same one she bought a few days before our departure. Of course, now that my cohabitation with Coco has become a fact of huge importance, huge in quotation marks, many people have begun to say that it's regrettable and criticize it. Sasha Polovtsov, with a purely Russian love for gossip and for the person about whom the gossip is spread, rushed to tell Mamachka the rumors. She, of course, was terribly interested and immediately gave a report to Maria. But Maria already knew about the trip from me, and so she just laughed. But, hand on heart, I am, of course, aware that it would have been better for Coco and me to choose another place than Monte Carlo, which, of course, at this time of year is the very center of all the society gossip and tales. But alas, what's done is done, and there's no use complaining about it now. All right, so this is happily a better situation than when Dmitri returned from Berlin, precipitating his plunge into a pretty deep state of depression. Okay, so beginning with the whole political thing, yeah, he's fairly cynical about it at this point, and the question remains: is he really finished with it? And I think he is. I don't recall that there will be any more references to the Trepov group or to his little information bureau, as he called it. I really think all that is behind him. He will, well, behind him, I should say, for now, because he will remain keenly interested in politics, and he will return to wanting to play a significant role in politics, but that will come a little later. Right now, he's still feeling burned by what happened after Berlin. And here we have the question, both in relation to politics and in relation to the gossip that's going around, and that is, was he really so much at the center of things? He probably was, to the extent that he's presenting it. He's saying that Golievsky and the other monarchists who are part of his little circle are running, or he expected them. They didn't, but he expected them to come running immediately when he got back and pounce, as he puts it, and have all kinds of things that they were upset about, that they want him to deal with, and things weren't resolved because he wasn't there, and bad things happened because he wasn't there. And I don't think the political activists really around the Trepov and the other more serious people in the immigration in Paris, I think by now they had moved on. And I think it was more these sort of, people like Golievsky who were sort of more excitable. And they probably really did think that it was a disaster that Dmitri had left Paris. But on the other hand, as he says, this time they're not. Maybe even they are starting to see that that things have changed. And they're not rushing this time to say, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And then with respect to the gossip, again, he says that gossip within the Russian colony is exclusively about him and his trip. So not even mentioning Coco, although obviously, you can't have the gossip without Coco. But as far as the Russian community is concerned, of course, Dmitri is the important one. And so, again, I asked myself, was that true? Was he really the center of all the gossip at that time? And again, maybe he was right. It was an interesting and titillating thing. All of a sudden, he's gone off to the south of France, and oh, Coco Chanel is gone too, and oh, they have this. She bought this Rolls Royce, and so yeah, it could be that created quite a stir. But on the other hand, he's been gone for what is it? More than 2 weeks now. Yeah, he's been gone for 3 weeks now, I think, and I guess the gossip is still going strong. But probably true. Probably true. I do think, again, I think I quoted once before what David Foster Wallace, the famous American author, said, that I cared about what people thought about me until I realized that they don't think about me at all. And, not in a way to say that the people who care about me don't really care about me, but just I'm not the center of the universe. He was a famous author, and he realized that even he was not the center of the universe. Well, of course, he ended up killing himself, so there may have been more pathology inside that expression than was healthy. But on the other hand, I think it's a good thing to remember for all of us. We're not the center of the universe, even if we're David Foster Wallace or Grand Duke Dmitri or Coco Chanel. Okay, so I would like to know, I haven't yet looked. I need to look in Последние Новости and see if this was just gossip that was circulating from person to person, or if there was actually any little item about it in the big emigre newspaper, the biggest one. But I don't know what the French gossip would have been. Was this in the sort of ladies' magazines or the society columns of the newspapers? Were there any items about guess who's gone off? Guess who's gone off together to the south of France? That sort of thing. Probably. So I need to make a note to myself to have a look at that, because it would genuinely be interesting. Of course, Dmitri has come to expect gleeful spite and malice, as he puts it. Well, I think probably most celebrities would agree that a lot of the attention they get is actually, Schadenfreude and spite and malice under the surface. If there's any dirt that can be thrown at you, probably politicians and celebrities and royals would agree that it's not really being cynical to expect that. That's kind of the reality. But I don't know. Dmitri was so wounded by what happened after Berlin that he's just going to assume that, whether it's true or not. He is going to assume that is what is at play. Okay, so if you recall, Pete Polovtsov was the brother that Dmitri was quite close to. Sasha, who was the more impressive brother in the sense of being a successful businessman and serious person. He and Dmitri didn't get along as well, but they were connected, and they weren't enemies. They were friends to a certain extent. So Sasha has been the one who's been spreading some of this gossip. At least he spread it to Mamachka, to Dmitri's stepmother. I get the impression that Sasha, well, if I read it correctly, and I think I do, Sasha must not have known about the trip. He was one of the people who was in the dark about it until word got back. And so, he was going around and telling Mamachka all this gossip. Maybe they got married and went off on their honeymoon, and the car was a gift. And Mamachka clearly also didn't know, and so she went running straight to Maria and said, "Oh, do you know what your brother's up to?" And Maria just laughed because she did know what her brother was up to, and it didn't involve marriage. Okay, so the overall response of the immigrant community seems to be, Dmitri thinks, one of not just disapprobation, but that they're sorry that this has come about, that they still see Dmitri as possibly a future Tsar, but if not that, at least somebody who's going to go by the book and marry, make a dynastic marriage. And yeah, I wanted to say something about this comment that Dmitri makes about Sasha having a purely Russian love of gossip. Well, I don't, I've never been in a context of knowing or not knowing whether Russians in particularly love gossip, but it would be interesting to go back through the diaries and make a note every time that Dmitri talks about something being characteristically Russian, because he does do it now and then, and not often, but now and then. And I'm very interested in how he saw his fellow Russians and how he conceived of himself as a Russian, what Russian characteristics he saw in himself, and what his identity was as a Russian, and how, as an American, I could roll my eyes and talk about various things that bug or amuse me about Americans. So that doesn't mean that he was saying, this is how Russians behave, but not me. He really did consider himself a Russian, absolutely. I guess by implication, we can see that Mamichka was not the most trustworthy person as far as she liked gossip as well. I think we saw that once before. I can't remember the circumstances, but yeah, she goes running right off to Maria. Let's see. So we do know that at least Maria was in on the whole thing, but it doesn't sound like many other people were. Okay, I'm not quite sure he refers, when he talks about Monte Carlo being the center of gossip, of society gossip at this time of year, when he's just told us that they went there because it was low season and they didn't have to worry so much about running into acquaintances. But yeah, anyway, we are not, any of us, so consistent that we don't make errors like that. Okay, what next? Well, so certainly this is a more measured attitude than what he had in the aftermath of Berlin. He is not going to plunge into depression again, although maybe one of the reasons why he was so sort of, not depressed, but just a little bit gloomy on the road trip was because he was anticipating a kind of firestorm of gossip when he got back. So yeah, he admits he made a mistake this time going to Monte Carlo, not going off with Coco, but going to Monte Carlo, but he's not beating himself up like he was after Berlin. So, okay, what do we have next time? Well, we have the question of depression, which he's going to address. Did the trip work? Is this different from Berlin? We already see that it is, but how does he assess that? And, what are his thoughts going forward? And as we go deeper into this long diary entry, also, what are we going to find out about his relationship with Coco? Is it still going to be kind of more or less indifferent? Like, yeah, she's a great friend, but that's about it. I don't know. And we're going to find out now what Maria is up to. Maria has finally decided that she is going to go out and do something with her life, and not yet with Coco. It's too early for that, or with her own business, but we'll find out what she is up to. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.